Welcome to Plain Talk with Trillium Wealth. I'm Steve Laska, managing partner here at Trillium Wealth, and I'm here with my partner and chief investment officer, Matt Gomoll. Matt, you and I often talk privately and sometimes publicly about living life with intention and making intentional decisions. And recently we did a pod, on like maybe doing stuff with your family, doing stuff with charities. And I think today you want to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies that you can actually employ to do that.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking, I think, a couple episodes ago where we were really focused on how to fit that into somebody's financial plan, gifting and donating when you can experience the impact that it's going to make rather than just lump sum upon, your death. And this is more, we're going to get into some strategies. How do you actually do that? Like, how do you actually give money? What assets should you give? What are the tax impacts? What are the strategies that can make it even more efficient for everybody involved?
So let's start with purpose versus tax deduction. If your motivation to do these things is just to save money on taxes, I mean, it's okay. But again, some things should make you happy. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody might come to us with a tax problem, and a solution could be making a large charitable donation. If that person's not charitably inclined, it's not a good strategy, right? We can save tax money by giving away a bunch, but if part of their goals and what drives them isn't making a charitable impact, they'd rather make impact for their family, well, then the charitable donation and the deduction shouldn't drive that strategy, right? It should be start with what am I trying to achieve first? And then once we know that, get into, well, what's the best way to achieve it, right? Is it giving gifts of cash? Is it stock? What structure should we get into? So that's kind of where we start from. It's just like, we got to get the answer right on what do you want to achieve first, and then build out the strategy rather than be enamored by tax savings and go in that direction first.
Well, so what are some of the tax smart gifts you can give to family members?
Yeah. So when we get into family members, there's a couple things. So first I want to get, clear up this idea of what can you gift to somebody. So there is not a limit on what you can give to somebody. Whenever you hear about gift taxes and any exclusion amount, it all has to do with estate taxes. And the estate taxes are so high that most people will never face them. Right. So when we're talking that it's in the tens of millions, 30 million or more, that a couple is going to have the ability to give away in their lifetime without facing estate tax. You just picture, am I going to die with, less than $30 million? I probably don't have an estate tax problem. The annual gift amount is $19,000. All that means is that I can give somebody, me as an individual can give another individual $19,000 with a gift tax exclusion. That just means I don't have to fill out a gift tax return. If I give them $20,000, well, I would have to fill out a gift tax return that says I gave them $1,000, right? It was the amount over the exclusion. And that gift tax return just goes on file and follows me around for the rest of my life to make sure I didn't give away more than that $15 million as an individual throughout my life. That's all it is. So we use that kind of $19,000 gift just for a paperwork. You don't have to file a return, gift tax return. That means that one parent can give one child $19,000. Well, so can the other parent, right? So two parents can give one child $38,000 in a year with zero gift tax return. You could also double that if your child is married, right? So now it's two parents given 19 each to the son and 19 each to the daughter-in-law, and now we have $76,000 going from parents to children, family, with no gift tax return. If you need to do more than that, you just do more than that, but the first chunk of it doesn't get filed on the gift tax return. So that's just clearing up why that exists and what people think about gift tax exclusion for. The other areas that are pretty cool as far as gifting to family members, you can pay qualified tuition or qualified medical expenses directly, and it doesn't count as a gift at all, right? So if you pay somebody's tuition for college directly, that is not a gift. You can also still give them $19,000, and that's your annual gift tax exclusion. Whereas the tuition part paid directly, medical expenses paid directly, don't even fall under that. Again, there's no extra tax on this. It's just a gift tax return. So not really any tax savings in that part of it. That is just strategy around like, what are we filing? How does this get used up against my lifetime estate tax exclusion, all those things. As we get into whether, like, if there's actual tax strategy for gifting to family members, one area that we've used is gifting appreciated stock, right? Like, let's say I bought Apple 20 years ago. It's gone way up in that period of time. So I have really highly appreciated Apple stock. And if I were to sell it to get cash to make a gift, I'd probably pay in the 20% long-term capital gains bracket. Well, if I gift it to an adult child, right? So picture somebody who's maybe just out of college, who's in a low income bracket because they're just getting their career started. They might possibly pay 0% capital gains on that, right?
Yeah.
So now we've got a tax arbitrage of, well, I could have sold it myself, paid 20%, maybe even 23.8 with the surcharge on there. Instead, I got an arbitrage because I gave it to somebody else who is in a 0% capital gains bracket. And now we've just saved 20% on it. Even if they're just in the 15% tax bracket, if they received it and sold it themselves, well, it's still a 5% tax arbitrage, right? So there's still tax savings just by being like, hey, here's the stock, you sell it, pay 15%, and we just saved 5% in taxes. So that's a common one that folks will use, of moving assets around, appreciated assets, to get that tax savings.
I think what people miss on that, at least in my experience in this business, is, they're all living longer. And I've watched people just say, they know like this much of the tax law. And they're like, well, I mean, when I die, it steps up. My dad's 90 and going strong. And I've listened to 70-year-olds say that in rooms. It's like, man, you're so far probably from dying that shouldn't be your decision. But shouldn't be the catalyst for your decision whether I should do this or not. Matt, let's talk about just at this point, instead of to family, like charity. I mean, you and I, we had a client. We loved her, sweet old woman. She's passed since, but she loved her church. She loved her community. She was sitting on millions of dollars, no debt, virtually no expenses. And I know that I talked to her many times, and so did you, about why not do something now that you love these organizations? Like, why are you waiting? Why don't you show them, like, do it for them now when you can see it? And at the time that we were talking to her, she was late 80s, 87, 88, 89 years old, and just could not get herself to do it. So let's try to get information out there that make people more comfortable. Again, you've hit your plan. And what are some of the things that you can do from a charitable standpoint, so that you can, I mean, I hate to say it, but you can get some satisfaction and enjoyment out of watching how your hard-earned money is used by, organizations that you care about.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, again, to the conversation we had previously, it is, where can you make a difference? Where can you enjoy making a difference, rather than just, write it into the will? Because I've seen that plenty, where somebody will say, oh yeah, they're, some charity or church is a named beneficiary or written into the will for X%. Well, that's great. But there are ways to make it beneficial to give today, have that enjoyment of seeing the difference you're making, support, that charity or church today, rather than in 5, 10, 15 years. And we can do it tax efficiently too. And tax efficiently is good for both sides, right? It's good for the donor because they're paying less in taxes, which means they're giving more, right? More dollars end up hitting the charity if we're not paying taxes on the, selling something, paying taxes, creating cash to then make that gift. The charity benefits because it receives more, right? So this works all around. The first one I'd start with is you can give, just like we talked about, you can give appreciated stock to family members and have a tax arbitrage there. You can give appreciated assets to a charity or a church, and you also can give them to a donor advised fund that you hold in your name. Either one works. And the idea is just, again, we'll go back to, I own a bunch of Apple that I bought 20 years ago, and I also have a goal to make a charitable donation. Well, I could sell the Apple, pay taxes on it, and give them what's left of, say I want to give them $50,000 of money. Well, I'm going to have to sell more than $50,000, pay taxes on it to be left with that. Well, instead, I could gift them just the Apple stock. There's no taxes involved because the charity is going to receive them and they will sell that and not pay taxes on it because they're not a taxable or tax exempt entity. So that just means that the shares and those dollars go further because they avoid the taxation. Similarly, we could put those, put a chunk of shares into a donor advised fund, or called a DAF. And the idea there is maybe you want to spread out the gift. So we want a large tax deduction for a donation this year, right? So in this case, maybe I'm going to put $50,000 of shares into a donor advised fund, get a large deduction this year. Maybe this is a high income year for me. Maybe I've got a lot of other tax issues. So we're going to, bunch what would otherwise be a several years of donations. For example, maybe I was going to give $5,000 a year for the next 10 years. Well, instead, I'm going to give $50,000 to my donor advised fund. The stock hits that. It can stay invested in that. We could diversify it into other things, but there's no tax consequence for selling inside that donor advised fund. And then I could make $5,000 a year donation to the church or to the charity, right? But I've created a large tax deduction for me day one, and we can time those things out on the most impactful year. And then you can spread out the donations to the recipient, the charity, over years if you feel like it.
Yeah, Matt, I love these concepts because, speaking of intentionality, we're very intentional here about identifying as wealth managers versus financial advisors, because we are firm believers that your wealth is so much more than your money. Your wealth is your value system, your belief system, and how are you investing in that to let that carry on? How are you investing in that? We've talked about before, to show your family what your values are. So I love these concepts, and I hope that we continue to make it a mission of ours to show people how to use their wealth, not just how to accumulate it, but how do you use it? How do you, like I keep saying, I feel like we have people dying with too much money. And that sounds crazy, but trust me, we watch it happen every single year, and we watch how maybe they live their lives and then they weren't there anymore. And we know them as people, and we know they wish they did more. And so we want to keep encouraging that. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, the last strategy I'll mention is qualified charitable distributions. So this again gets it. This is not gift to family members. This is gifts to qualified charities, churches and schools and whatever else. This one, I had a personal experience with this recently. I was teaching in the Army Reserve a few weeks ago, and one of the gentlemen I was teaching with was, a man of faith, very interested in making an impact with his large IRA that he had built. He's going to be retired from the government and retired from the military, and he's going to have a large pension. And we kind of started just talking, and it's like, you're going to have more than enough income, and you also have this other large asset. And he expressed this goal of making a difference with his money. Part of that's making a difference for his kids, and part of that was making a difference for his community. And when I explained what a qualified charitable distribution was, it was just really impactful in him seeing that he could give more to his charity without taxes, and see that he could make even bigger impact than he expected. So a qualified charitable distribution is you have IRA, 401k money, the pre-tax retirement account. And once you're over 70 and a half, the IRS lets you give up to $111,000 a year in qualified charitable distributions, which means money leaves your IRA, goes straight to the church or the charity, and there's zero taxes, right? So picture instantly we are preventing a 12, 22, 24, 32% federal income tax hit on those dollars. Now we're really talking about more dollars are being donated than if we paid with after-tax dollars. For anybody over 70 and a half that is charitably inclined and has IRA dollars, this is a no-brainer. We always want to make sure people are using their IRA dollars this way rather than taking them personally, paying income tax on it, and then writing a check. That is inefficient. The government got in the middle of that, and the qualified charitable distribution, the QCD, prevents that. And it's an awesome technique. And I have a lot of clients who will just routinely do that in some amount. They'll just routinely do that. It counts against your required minimum distribution. So when you're of required minimum distribution age, if you have more RMD than you need, part of it goes QCD, part of it goes through that qualified charitable distribution, and then the rest comes to you as income, right? So you can split it up like that.
Yeah, I love these strategies, and I am honored that we have so many clients that use them. I mean, that part I really, really love. We have so many that do this, that they are doing some of what our advice is, right? They've gotten to an age, they know they're fully funded, they're not spending their IRAs, and they're just systematically giving it to organizations that they really love and want to support. So, all right, Matt, on that note, we'll end today's session. I look forward to some ones coming up. We're going to be very topical. I know we stayed away from current events, but we'll have some coming up. We'll certainly be back in current events, but I think it's important for our clients that we're reminding them of the different strategies that some are already using, and sometimes that helps too. Hopefully it'll spur some people to say to us, wait, how did that work again? And how are people really happy doing that? And of course, the answer is yes. So thanks, Matt. Look forward to seeing you guys next time. Really hope you subscribe. Recommend the pod to other folks out there who just want to get really good information on wealth and how they can manage it and how they can create a legacy for their family and their communities. And we look forward to seeing you all next time.